program a completely new application that can get things done faster than they ever dreamt was possible, had no clue that their computer could even do something like that, you're a freaking wizard. That's what applied psychology is for the human operating system, of understanding the fundamental ways that people use their senses and pre-awareness cognitive processes to make sense out of the world so that their logic, conscious mind has good, reliable information to work with.
And now, Verbal Artwork Podcast with Mr. Rembrandt.
All right, I'm here with another episode of Verbal Artwork with Mr. Rembrandt. And on this episode, I have with me a very interesting guest, Mr. Jonathan Pritchard. And Mr. Jonathan is a mentalist. And we're going to go over some amazing things with Jonathan about his career as a mentalist and how he's used applied psychology to better people's lives through self-improvement, motivation, and personal development. He has worked with a lot of different companies as a consultant and helping them to better their company and better their employees. Pritchard is an author and also a speaker. He has published a few books. One of his books that he's published is Think Like a Mind Reader, which is improve your business, strengthen relationships, and to solve your problems. He also has another book that is called Perfect Recall, which is increasing your confidence, learn faster, be more productive, and be memorable. Learn like a mind reader, strategies for learning anything at the speed of thought. And Wing Chun, which is a martial arts, and he'll be talking about how life physics, a study in building a life worth of living from the ground up. So we'll get into some topics about being a mentalist, some background into applied psychology, Mr. Pritchard's tour as being a consultant, and hopefully we'll get into some of his book. So thanks for being a guest, Mr. Jonathan. Probably refer to you as Jonathan on the show. And if you would like to just give an introduction of yourself, and then we'll go into some questioning.
You got it, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a fantastic rundown. You mentioned everything already, so you did my job for me. That's perfect. And yeah, the background is, I toured the world for about 15 years as a performer, and a lot of the lessons I learned on and off stage applied to business. So that's why I kind of shifted over into being a corporate consultant. So that way I feel like I'm helping more people more quickly and helping them in a bigger way than just helping them forget their problems for an hour. You know, it's a lot better if you can solve them permanently. So it's a really interesting way to make a living.
So you were a mentalist first and the consulting came later.
Right. Because a lot of folks would ask, well, how in the world are you doing this? How did you get to be a mentalist? How do you get booked? Like all the questions around making a living as a touring performer started showing me into corporate consulting, because it's all marketing, it's branding, it's sales, it's negotiation, it's delivery, it's client retention. I mean, it's the whole 9 yards. So then when I was getting more and more questions about how I would do what it is that I was getting hired to do, well, now you're getting into consulting.
Right. So we'll get into some of the mentalist things first. Do you watch other mentalists, right? You watch other mentalists and learn from each other and maybe even copy each other or pick up things. What are some mentalists that you know, that you follow, or that you watch, or who's been a mentor to you? And sort of.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because you're right. You do watch your colleagues. You do want to know kind of what they're up to. And then it is tempting to borrow jokes or presentational frameworks. And while there are very few legal protections for your work, there's a really, really strong professional gentleman's network of policing, of saying, hey, that clearly is so-and-so's routine. It's their framing, it's their scripting, and that's not, one, smart to steal from your colleagues, and two, it is just bad branding. Because if your quote-unquote competition is really well known for doing one trick or another, and then you do it, everybody goes, oh, that guy, because that's the guy that does that trick. So all you're doing is advertising your competition. So in a way, it's not smart, it's not nice, and it's also bad for business to borrow, quote unquote, without permission. There are good ways to share those things, because a lot of the really good thinkers may not like performing so much, so they will write books and publish their ideas, or they could be a private consultant themselves and say, hey, I've got this idea. It doesn't work for my character, but I know you, this is what you do. So this is right up your alley. If you want this routine, it's yours. So there's a whole world behind coming up with new stuff for your audience's experiences.
I see. So it's like an unsaid code of ethics where, you don't want to be copying someone else's tricks or routines, but there is, but if you can improve something or get an idea from maybe another mentalist, or
right.
It is part of being a mentalist more so the tricks, or using comedy, or using psychology to entertain, or is it a combination of all of them?
All of those are in the toolbox.
I see.
And comedy can often have a role beyond just making the audience laugh. It can also help the audience not get stuck on how terrifying mind reading can be. Because imagine if you were in the room with a person who could genuinely hack your passwords, know what your credit card PIN is. That would be deeply unsettling, right, and not really something that you would want to pay money to go have happen to you. So if you focus too much on what you could do with this stuff, then it's not entertaining, it's just uncomfortable. So then you've got to roll in some comedy to lighten it up a little bit, and then help people understand this as a performance and not as a hacking session. So it's a whole recipe full of ingredients that go into the final product of entertaining an audience. I like to tell people that it's a mix of applied psychology, showmanship, and moxie. Those are my three favorite ingredients to make the experience happen. And one of my kind of mentors, mostly through his books, but we've met over the years, Max Maven is his name. And he explains mentalism in terms of kind of like professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. So you've got a bell curve, and on one end are the people who think wrestling is 100% real, and it's all in the moment, and it's basically a documentary of these guys' lives. Then on the other end, you've got the people who go, it's all scripted, it's all fake, none of this is real, this is just entertainment. Then you've got some people in the middle, most folks are in the middle, that go, I'm pretty sure some of this is scripted, that they're not going out there without a plan, but there's no way somebody's arm bends like that and doesn't hurt. Like you, so they're actually doing some of this for real. Some of this is made up. I don't really know where that line is for this particular moment, but I'm here to enjoy it nonetheless.
So I've had I went to Las Vegas for the first time a few weeks ago, and I wanted to see the Mentalist show in the Strat Hotel, but I wasn't able to because there's just so many things.
Who is that? Is that Jerry McCambridge there? Or Banachek or Alon New? Yes, Banachek is one of my mentors, one of the people I've looked up to, and we've known each other for about 15 years now. Yeah.
Awesome. And I wanted to see that show more than anything, but I couldn't get to it. It's just so many things to do in Las Vegas, and time just went away. And but I was able to see, I have seen some clips of Mentalist performing acts, I forget his name, but one of the ones who was on the Dr. Phil show. And I've seen when I was there, I saw the magician Shim Lee, I believe his name is
Shin Lim. Yeah.
Shin Lim. Yes.
Yep.
And he had another individual work with him to kind of like in between skits, if I could call it that, do different things with the audience. And I kind of visualized him as a mentalist. And so what I was seeing from that, from the show is some of the acts, it's all amazing. It's all amazing. So just like you pointed out, there is this element, and that's the awe in the show, right? The element of, is this really real? But I mean, he did actually get the numbers that I was thinking of, but is this scripted or is this set up? And my question is it a combination of those? I mean, you don't want to give your secrets away, but is it a combination of, you said it is the combination of the psychology and the combination of the showmanship, so to speak, but some of it just, I don't know, I guess I'm asking you to give away some of your secrets.
Help you appreciate it in a new way beyond just having a lot of questions. So I totally get it. I totally get it. Mentalism and magic, they're mystery performers. And it's one of the only human endeavors where the point is mystery.
Yes.
It's not just comedy, because then go watch the comedians. It's not just amazing, because then go watch the Daredevil. It's mystery that is at the heart of those experiences. And what really draws me to the mentalism is, in a way, what you're asking is, if I went to go see that show again, would it happen exactly the same way twice?
Yeah.
Is this all set up? Is it what's going on? And to me, that's a fundamental difference between magicians and mentalists, because a magician might have exactly the same routines, the exact same music, the exact same choreography, whether there's 500 people in that room or nobody. They could start their show and go all the way through and end it, and nothing was done different, because it's strictly a performative art. If there's an audience member there, they would be mystified, they would be amazed. But magicians are doing tricks with objects and things. There's a lot of audience interaction. Counterpoint, mentalists, their framework might be the same. This is the point where I ask somebody to think about a place they would like to visit besides Vegas. Where is it that you would love to go, but is just off the table for some reason? Well, that person's answer is going to be different every single show. That person's personality is going to be different every single show. In a way, it's kind of like an improv show because the improv actors are taking suggestions from the audience and then translating those into comedy. Much the same way, a mentalist can't do their show without an audience because it's mind reading. So I say in my show, it's like, I could tell you what I'm thinking, but that's just a monologue. It's in no way amazing. I'm only able to do what I do because you are here in the audience right now. So you guys are just as much a part of this experience as I am. And when we come together, that's when the magic happens. So there's a lot of architecture that goes into designing the experience. However, what you're watching is playing out in real time because you're genuinely helping, right? He didn't come tell you to think of those numbers. You thought them up on the spot. Magicians are good, but there's no way that we can tell you to think those numbers without you knowing that they're telling you to think about those numbers, right? So,
yes.
So there again, we're back to some of this is architected on their end, some of this is creative on your end, and then when you meet in the middle, then you're not sure where that line is. And when a mentalist has done a good job, you leave with more questions than you came with.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're sitting here going, what in the world happened, sounds like he did a good job.
Yes. And that's what attracted me more so than the magic show. Like I did see some magic shows, but for me, the word I used is there's an awe about it. You know, you got cards underneath. You go through a skit and, you know, next thing you know, he tells you to pull a card out underneath your seat, and it's the card everybody's thinking of, and it's a different element than having a magician perform. So
right.
So really quick, did you always as a child want to have this type of interest or want to be a magician or mentalist or a performer of some type, or is this something that developed over time, like you were in college or something, or after?
Yeah, it was a slow burn on thinking I want to do this as a living. It's something that I've always been interested in since I was about 5 years old.
Really?
It's kind of one of those things that I'm a very curious person. Like I love being alive. There's just so much to know, to think about, to experience. It's just awesome that we've got this roller coaster we call being alive. And it's such a gift.
Yes.
If there were something more interesting than mentalism, I'd be doing that. But I've read a lot. I've been a lot of places. I've done a lot of things, and there hasn't been anything that is more interesting than mentalism, because every single thing I'm interested in has a place within the world of mind reading. So that just happens to be where I spend my time then.
So what about it is the it factor? What does it for you that like this is the thing?
My degree is in painting, like portrait painting specifically. So that's what my college education was about, art. And I went to a liberal arts school, so I studied a little bit of everything. So I'm really good at cocktail parties of talking about everything at this much depth, right? And then I've been drawing my whole life and started drawing G.I. Joe characters from comic books and cartoons. And then, part of one of my businesses was doing branding and website and poster and DVD case design for other entertainers. So this world that I'm in has room for my design and coding background. all within the framework of knowing what is going to have a great effect on that person's ideal market. Who's your ideal client? Okay, I can help you crawl inside their head to know what it is they're looking for, then present you as exactly that. Now it's real easy to get hired by your perfect clients because you look exactly like the person they're looking for. Why do you do that? Oh, because now you know exactly what they're thinking, and it makes it a lot easier to communicate. So that's kind of what I mean by this world has all the room for every single thing I'm interested in.
I see. Who's your favorite? Do you have a favorite painter?
Ooh,
It's Rembrandt.
Absolutely. I was trying to think of the second best, you know. Yeah, Rembrandt is solid. It's me. I'm my favorite painter. I've enjoyed a lot of different painters throughout time for different reasons. The kind of renaissance for anatomy and attention to detail and the celebration of human beauty. Like I love that. Like to me, that's one of my favorite reasons art exists. It's a singular human celebration, which is why like I'm in the crypto world. I sell portraits as NFTs and have been doing for about 2 years already. So all these folks that are just coming up, well, oh, have you heard of this NFT thing? I'm like, yeah, I've been selling this for a long time. What I don't like are the generative artists that are using computers to generate random images to sell. Because to me, that doesn't celebrate humanity and human beauty in quite the same way as a portrait or figure painting or whatever else you could throw under that umbrella.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a lot of examples of that. Just like innovation is great, but also it stunts the growth, or it stunts a lot of traditional things that were excellent. Like I like streaming and all of that is great, and it opens up a world for new different things. But the fact that a new movie comes out and it's already available to stream at your home kind of takes the fun and excitement out of going to the movie theater and getting the large screen and the whole atmosphere that way. So that's another example where innovation just kind of takes the beautiful nuances of what we traditionally have done, and it changes it with something else that's people who are, I don't know, kind of lazy might prefer to do rather than the
right. Yeah.
But not to segue off too much, but for the viewers, we talked about being a mentalist, right? So how you said a lot of being a mentalist uses applied psychology, as well as your ability to be artistic and how you love that for those reasons. How does applied psychology come into play? So go over that a little bit. Like, what is applied psychology, and what actually about the psychological aspect is actually being incorporated for the show? And then how do you use that to consult?
Oh man, if I had gone for a doctorate, this would be my dissertation, because it applies at every single level of the experience that you want to look at. So if you want to look at the marketing, well, how do you present your show in a way that gets somebody interested enough to buy a ticket? Further, how do you get the right person interested enough to buy a ticket and make sure the wrong person does not buy a ticket, so that only the people in your audience are people who are going to love you? So you need to understand who that person is, what they like about your show, what they're going to like about your show, then putting that through in a way that vibes with them. So applied psychology to me is a nice way of saying hacking their mind. Because there's an analogy and it breaks down if you look at it too closely, but it's useful to get the point across, which is there are a lot of different ways to use a computer. And most people are hunt and peck typers. Like the kind of older generation, they can type with one finger on each hand, one key at a time kind of a thing, right? And then it's like watching my mom go to the address bar to type in bing.com, hit enter, to then search Bing for Google, then click on that to then type into Google, how do I YouTube something, right? Like you're going, what? Why are they doing it this way? Then you've got folks that are more familiar that are still blown away by, how do you know all those keyboard shortcuts? You're so fast. I don't even know what a keyboard shortcut is for a program that I use all day, every day. I still use my mouse to click around on things instead of using keyboard shortcuts. That saves me time and effort. And that's most people. So you could blow them away with just some quick keyboard shortcuts and they go, wow, you just totally made my life better. Okay. Or you could be a programmer who can access the command line, gain admin access to their computer, program a completely new application that can get things done faster than they ever dreamt was possible, had no clue that their computer could even do something like that. You're a freaking wizard. That's what applied psychology is for the human operating system, of understanding the fundamental ways that people use their senses and pre-awareness cognitive processes to make sense out of the world so that their logic conscious mind has good, reliable information to work with. So a magician, a mentalist, knows what that process is from bottom to top and can design and engineer a program, a magic trick, a mentalist skit, or a demonstration, an experiment, whatever you want to call it. They can basically code that app where the output is amazement and awe. And the user has no clue how in the world this is possible. It's just, well, when you know how the code runs, you could just build a program to make it happen. So that's what a mentalist is doing, is defining, what do you want this program to do? Do I want them to think that I could read their mind? Do I want them to think that I can predict the future? Do I want them to think that I'm really good at influencing their decisions and I'm making them do things that they're not even aware that I'm making them do? Do I want them, right? So you first have to define what success is, then work your way backwards. Okay, what would be a fun or interesting, mysterious, amazing, scary, what vibe do I want to have with that outcome? Do I want them to be on their feet clapping? Do I want them to be crying? Do I want them to call their mom and be like, I love you so much. Thank you for having, right? So then once you know the vibe you want, what kind of story or experience would communicate that in an experience, not just explicitly? But the explicit would be, I want you to feel amazed. I want you to feel sad. I want you to, okay. Or you could engage them in a story that helps them feel that way. Well, that's going to be a lot more successful. So then you go, okay, so that's the experience. Well, how in the world are we going to make that happen? Like, okay, now you're talking about method. Now you're talking about skills. Is it sleight of hand? Is it a gimmick? Is it like by what means are you going to make that happen? Well, now you're 4 steps in before you've ever even considered how it's going to work. If you go the opposite way, you say, well, we've got this thing that we can make something happen. So what can we make out of it? It's not going to be as compelling in terms of theater or experience or connecting with your audience. So going with method first isn't all that great. Outcome and then design your way backwards. So to put that in marketing terms, okay, what does a conversion mean for you? Is it an email sign up? Is it a paying customer? Is it a 30-day trial? What's your conversion? Because if you're running PPC ads, a conversion might be somebody clicking on your ad. Well, okay, if that's your definition of success, well, now we're running a PPC ad that says free iPad over here on this website. Now you're going to get 1 million people clicking on it, but their quality is bad. Oh, now you care about quality. Okay, so that click isn't your definition of success. Your definition of success is what? And they go, leads to the website. And you go, well, we're still there. They go, okay, well, we want qualified leads. You're like, okay, so now we're back to quality. Then once they're on their website, what do you want them to do? Do you want them to give you a phone call, an email, fill out this form, get a quote, sign up for your email? Well, I want all 5 of them. Like, okay, so you mean you're going to give your visitor 5 options and hope they get the one you want the most. So you now have a 20% chance of success. Whereas if you architected this whole experience, then made your conversion be the only thing that they could do, then you're much more likely to get that conversion because they don't have the other 4 to choose from, because, they're going to take an option you give them. So when you try to help them by adding more options, you're actually minimizing the likelihood of your successful effect. So when your marketing is not effective, it's because you haven't defined what outcome you want, or your experience to lead to that outcome is janky, or the methods you're using are not employed properly. You don't have the skills, you don't have the timing right. Maybe your script is wrong, your copy is bad. You've got 5 spelling mistakes and people think you're a scam. So there are all sorts of places where you are bleeding out your conversions because you haven't architected the full experience properly yet.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, so a lot of things there that I was seeing. One thing while you were explaining, it reminds me that in a lot of different ways, a lot of different industries, people are doing similar things, right? Like a musician, there are, depending on the genre of music, they're trying to set a certain mood, right? Maybe this song, they want people to feel the deep story that they're implementing, or this particular song is maybe for concert ready, where everybody's going to be cheering, standing on their seat. So you're very cognizant about human behavior and how you can apply it in a particular setting. And your setting tends to be the setting where you may use a little bit maybe of confusion or awe or wow, and the goal is, if you did a good job, to where people leave out of the theater thinking like, well, how did he do that? And maybe that might make them come back for more. And then the way you could apply that in business, it appears that getting companies to understand what is the end goal. And by viewing and understanding your end goal, you can figure out the steps to get a person to each level in order to reach the finish line of what you're trying to achieve. But you have to know what you want.
Exactly.
Do you want people to purchase something, or you just want them to view your website? Do you want them to be a subscriber because you have videos? So very, very, very interesting. How has you, being a consultant for a lot of these big companies, BP, State Farm, United Airlines, and just to name a small couple, what specifically have you done with those companies to help them increase or better their company?
For BP, I was brought in during one of their all hands executives training weekends. So it was the president, the CEO, and all the executives of the entire company were there in the room. And I was brought in to help them think about integrating technology into the company. Because innovation is creativity, is imagination. Well, who better to talk about that than somebody who can imagine the impossible and then make it happen? So it's kind of walking them through, here's how thinking works. So you're doing meta skills at that point. Here's how to think about thinking. And then understanding how to recognize cognitive biases and beliefs that are hidden underneath decisions you're making that you're not even aware are there. Oftentimes you need somebody who doesn't have those same beliefs to show you where your beliefs are holding you back. So that's kind of the work that I was doing with them. For State Farm, I was kind of one of their entrepreneurial coaches for about 3 years. About once a month, I would have a presentation about some dimension of business, whether it was negotiation skills, presentation skills, communication, rapport building, networking, basically any kind of human communication situation, I would talk to them about it. And State Farm, franchisees and franchise owners and independent agents and basically anybody that was connected to that company in any way could come to any of my workshops to learn. So it's just, again, showing them how the human mind works, and then working with that process helps you be more successful at communicating your value, at connecting with potential customers and clients and keeping your existing clients. How in the world do I raise my rates with existing customers? Okay, that's all psychology and negotiation skills right there. So it's kind of like any place where your business connects to a human being, I can help. And that's why those companies bring me in.
How did that occur? Just did it start from maybe one VP or CEO of a big company saw your show and was like, hey, could you give us some advice? And then that led to other companies, or did you reach out to them? How did that happen?
A lot of my client base were companies already, because they would bring me in as the entertainer for their end of year awards banquet, where Bob from the Eastern Division sold the most Columbines or whatever, right? So like their big company celebration or Christmas party or whatever. So I would be brought in as an entertainer. Or at a big conference, I'd be brought in as an MC, because I could keep the show moving. If there were a speaker who didn't show up on time and they are still getting mic'd and it's time for them to be on stage, well, I can do a 10-minute routine and the audience doesn't know that we're waiting on somebody. They just think, oh, Jonathan's doing some of his mind reading. I love this part. So then it's not like the MC comes out and goes, well, we're still waiting on the speaker to come out because he's a goof and he messed up the time, right? Like that's not professional. Right. So all these ways that I was using my performing skills in the corporate market already, then at these conferences, I was seeing these business consultants and business speakers, and I understand the psychology of marketing, talking, and every single one, I was like, I know this stuff better than they do. Like I know the psychology part way better than they do. They're talking about this story of somebody that they read about in another book to get this idea across. I can show this audience that idea and involve them in a way that they literally will never forget. I can do this better than them. Okay, I got it. So then I just started telling all of my existing clients, hey, by the way, in addition to being the entertainer, you could also bring me in and I can walk you through all the applied psychology I'm using in my show, explain all of that stuff, then help you guys apply it to your own email marketing, your own Facebook marketing, your brochure design. But I can help you on the communication side of things. And they go, I've never thought of that. And I go, I know, that's why I brought it up. Because it's not their job to imagine new ways for you to help them. It's your job to communicate how you're going to provide more value. So if somebody listening to this is kind of wondering, well, how do I break out of this rut? Everybody knows me as this thing. How do I branch out without being a jack of all trades, master of none kind of a thing? Just go talk to the existing clients you've got and say, in addition to what I've been doing, you could also understand why what I've been doing is also working for these other areas, for these other services, but it's all just a different way of applying the same core competency that I have. And then they go, wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about that.
No, that's great. Because you laid out some things definitely that I think about all the time, in which it shows that a lot of people, you kind of have to sell yourself, because a lot of people, which is one thing I don't like, but it's kind of human nature, and for example, in sports, they have scouts. And the purpose of a scout is to try to find the talent. And if people were able to recognize talent and just reach out to people who are talented at will, then you wouldn't need things like scouts. But generally, if you are talented and you feel like you're good at something or you're great at something, you have something to offer, you kind of have to package it in a way and sell yourself.
Right.
Because people kind of get blindsided in their own things and they have their own things going on, and they're just maybe not able to see potential unless it's actually presented to them on a platter. So those are some things that I definitely noticed. And you talked a lot about like checking how the psychology has to do with, checking biasness is, for example, or rather, how do you check your own biases? For example, like when you try to help a company market and see things clearly without biasness, so they can get from point A to point B in a very good, effective manner. So just for personal reasons, like how do you check your own biases and check yourself to make sure that you're not overthinking your abilities or saying that, hey, I need to improve in this area, or how about other ways that other people can check their biases? Because a lot of people, right, we have biases, we have cognitive biases, we have fallacies sometimes, and I'm a person who tries to check my biases, check my fallacies, and even point them out to others, because it's not to, and people can be very offended if you point out their biases or their fallacies. But us as people, if we have something to offer to embetter somebody and we know and we see it, it's good to offer them a way that could help them to embetter themselves. So if you're having a conversation with somebody and you're like, hey, well, that doesn't seem like necessarily the best way to go about it. You seem, for the fact that all of your father, your grandfather, and your great-grandfather all were in the Army, that might necessarily not be the best thing from you, given that you said you really don't like weapons and all of that. And so you told me you're very much into planes and you're very much into aeronautics. So why don't you go into the Air Force? Oh, no, the Army's for me. Well, so how does a person, what can a person do to check their bias, and how do you check your biases also to try to stay?
Yeah, that's a really, really smart thing to be doing. There's, I think it's Richard Feynman, might be misremembering it, but he was saying something along the lines of the first rule is to not fool yourself, and you're the easiest one to fool. And personally, I have mentors who have achieved what I'm trying to work on, so that they have already walked the path. They know what it takes so that they can save me decades of forging my own way forward. They just show me step by step. So then they can spot the problems that I would have before I would ever be aware of it myself. So it's really important to have a mentorship relationship with somebody who's already where it is that you would like to be. The second wrinkle is that Richard Feynman thing, which is when people first start learning about applied psychology and cognitive biases and that kind of a thing, they think, oh, I read this one book and therefore I have all the tools I need to never be fooled ever again, which now makes you the easiest person to fool because you think you know every single way you could be fooled, which is my favorite person to fool. So science audiences are some of my favorite audiences to work with because they're ultra rational and they're used to working with cause and effect, but the human imagination can interrupt cause and effect. And that's what lateral decision making is and lateral strategy making, right? So ultra logical thinkers are some of the easiest people to fool. So it's kind of one of those things of, I can't teach you what you think you already know. So those are the most difficult people to help because they think they don't have a problem. And the most common form of that I see are the business owners who are good at whatever skill it is that they were good at that made them want to start a business in the first place. I don't care if it's selling carpet, roofing, electrician, supply chain, I couldn't care less. That's what they're good at. And then they go, well, I would never click on a Facebook ad, and therefore nobody else would click on a Facebook ad. Consequently, Facebook ads aren't going to work. So because they are making the fundamental mistake of assuming everybody thinks like them, they're missing out on their entire market because everybody that wants to buy what they're selling is buying stuff off Facebook like hotcakes. But the business owner knows for sure that I never click on a Facebook ad. I don't even have a Facebook account, and nobody I sell to is going to do that. It's like, well, you have a fundamental mistake about your market. But most people think that most people think like them because they haven't done the hard work of understanding how thinking works. And that's kind of the trick, which is of self-promotion. The reason why you have to self-promote, do you know how hard it is to get your elevator pitch correct? Do you know how hard it is to get some stranger at a cocktail party to wrap their head around how you're going to make them millions of dollars? I bet you dollars to donuts that you don't have it right. You listening to this, most people have no clue how to frame what it is that they do. And you expect some stranger that doesn't even know your name to read your mind of how you're going to help their business. Oh, so you think that stranger's going to do all that hard work for you and then figure it out and then hire you for it. Yeah, that's insane. That is wacky talk to me, that you think some rando off the street is going to know how you're going to make their life better. Like that is, to me, fundamentally just full on narcissism, because of course everybody knows what. Yeah, right. Okay. So if you have an aversion to self-promotion, you probably are narcissistic, but you think you don't like self-promotion because you think you're not. But instead you have a belief that everybody could read your mind and will know you before you've ever had the chance to introduce yourself. So that's another case where the thinking is fundamentally out of alignment with reality, and their beliefs are demonstrably, provably wrong. And even then, they're still going to say, "Yeah, I don't want you to help me run Facebook ads." Okay, so you're not going to be my client.
Yeah. I mean, that's amazing there. There's so much there. I mean, I will even say that I have a best friend, and we check each other on many different things all the time. Anything's open. We've been best friends since 14. Yeah. So, and he's like my other half. I mean, we could finish each other's sentences. People get uncomfortable when we're in the same room together. And I tell him he checks me, I check him. And I tell him sometimes that, you know, we have knowledge that's esoteric to us a lot of the times. And sometimes he'll do it more than me. And I'm not going to say I don't do it, but he'll do it more than me, where he believes that something we may talk about all the time, somebody else should know it. And in conversation, if they don't know it, he'll get angry. Like, what is the matter with you? Are you, you know, an idiot or something? And, you know, I have to remind him sometimes, pull him to the side, remind him, like, you know, everybody is not into what we're into. Everybody has not been, for example, investing in real estate as much as we have for the past 5 years, talking about it every day, obsessing. They just said that they're into real estate and they're starting out, and they might talk like they have a big game, but if we're in a conversation and they're showing that they don't know exactly all that we're talking about, we can't, you know, we just try not to be rude, because, you know, they might have a little Dunning-Kruger going on, where because they read one book, or they might be house hacking and they have some individual living in another room paying them $600 a month, that they feel like they are Trump, for a lack of a good example, as far as real estate is concerned. You know, and I told him, let's not always think everybody is ridiculous or stupid because we know a little bit more than they do in a particular area. So one thing I could see that, so me and him, we like checking people, and we have, and one thing I noticed, we do that a lot when it comes to people, and it kind of pushes people away, because we're always so open to self-improvement and betterment, and we have no problem saying, "Hey man, what are you doing? That's terrible. We need to be doing this." And then we're so open, it doesn't bother us. But when you have friends and family that are around that are into small talk, and they're into not constantly trying to self-improve all the time because they think they know it all, they think they have it all, and then you come around and you're just pointing out all of their flaws, they actually get very upset, and they actually want to distance themselves from you. How can a person, for example, because even I would say listening to you kind of made me want to check my own perspective on how we were talking about earlier in regards to me looking at people, for example, who are looking for business and other things, and expecting that they should understand good talent, but people don't. I mean, I even, for example, I do a little sports betting, and I win like 80% plus% of the time. And I only bet on things that I know they're going to win. And a lot of my buddies are like, how do you always pick the right thing? And I'm thinking to myself, well, we all watch sports together. Why don't you understand why I'm picking the right thing? We talk about the same stuff all the time. But so I need to understand also that, I might be able to see talent very easily, like especially in boxing, guys who were boxing 3 or 4 years ago, who are now champions, like Ryan Garcia, for example, young guy in boxing. I don't know if you follow boxing. Devin Haney and whatnot. I was following these guys 3 or 4 years ago. I knew they'd be champions. People are like, how did you predict that? Many different things. But I also need to keep reminding myself that everybody is not you. They don't see things like you. And it's kind of selfish to expect them to be able to think that they are in that same place you are. So how kind of segue into out of the question I was going to ask you. So how this might be, well, I'll just shoot this question at you, see how you respond. How can dealing with, for example, a CEO or a person in general, when you're trying to offer them a marketing scheme or idea that can embetter them, right? Or you're dealing with a friend or somebody and you have something that can embetter them. How do you not make them easily offended, or how do you open up and present something to them in a way where they can accept it because that is absolutely going to be better for them?
It's a really good question. And honesty is one of the most expensive resources in the universe. If they're not paying you to be honest, it will cost you everything to be honest with them. So if they're not paying me to be honest, right? Part of that is, a lot of people might walk away thinking I'm advocating for lying, and I'm not. Let's put it this way. Somebody just saw my 70-minute theater show. They just watched me do my full-on mind power, mind reading experience, and they are just blown away. And then they're willing to stand in the autograph line, and their one question that they're going to ask me is, how did you do that one routine? Tell me, how did you make that, tell me how you did that. Well, what gives them the right to demand I share my life experiences with them? Nope. No, thank you. I did it very well. That's how I did it. I did it very well, thank you. Right? Or they keep pushing. Like, no, really, tell me. And then I say, well, that's kind of like asking a world-class piano player, how do you play Rachmaninoff? Well, you just hit the right keys in the right order at the right time. There you go. You're playing Rachmaninoff. There's no trick to it. You just dedicate your life to being able to do something that somebody else can't. Okay, neat. You can do things I can't. Like, ask those ridiculous questions like, how did you do that? Okay, so that's the first level person. The second level person would go, I've really been interested in mentalism for a long time, and I'm really interested in how you did that routine. And then I go, okay, they told me that they're interested. So then I test their dedication. I go, what books have you read? Not what YouTube, not TV show. What book have you read? And then they go, oh, I haven't read any of the books, but I love mentalism. And I go, oh, well, then you know what? You're on the right track. You'll figure it out eventually. They won't. Then there's the third person who goes, I've been interested in mentalism. Oh, really? What books have you read? Oh, I've read this one, and I'm currently reading through this one. Then I know, oh, those are the classics, or, oh, those were all printed in the last 2 years, so they probably got into it recently through Instagram or whatever. So that tells me a lot, but it also tells me that they themselves have expended a lot of energy to figure this out already. you want to coach somebody who's coachable. That third person, good luck shutting me up. I'm going to go, okay, if you've read these books, what did you think about that one? Okay, if you loved that one, then this would be the next one that you should get because it builds off of 2/3 of what that guy was thinking about. This next dude is going to take that to the next level and it's going to blow your mind. That's useful to that person. It also means that I'm going to share my time with somebody who isn't going to waste it. So it kind of depends. In the nature of your question, it's kind of like if there's somebody on the train who's going, I've got this problem, and they're talking on the phone, I'm going to keep my yapper shut because they don't know me. They don't know that I'm an expert at a world-class level of exactly what they're dealing with. Nope, no thank you. Or I might be like, here's my card. Call me when you're ready to pay to solve this problem. If it's somebody that's coming to me and asking me for my advice, it's kind of like the Joker from The Dark Knight. If you're good at something, don't do it for free. And in this, I think of it kind of like a tarot card reading or a palm reader. I am a professional, both of those. I get paid crazy money to go to parties and corporate events to do exactly those things. Well, I could give you a free reading and you go, all right, that's interesting. Or you pay me $20,000 for that same 30-minute reading. You're going to listen a lot closer when you've invested $20,000 to hear what it is I have to tell you. And if I tell you X, well, then afterwards, you're going to go do X because, holy cow, you're literally invested in my value. So if they aren't willing to exchange value or invest value in terms of time, effort, interest, money, there's a whole lot of different forms of value beyond dollar amount, but dollar amount's a really good stand-in. If they aren't invested in solving their problem enough to invest in solving their problem, then I know that I can't be more invested in solving their problem than they aren't. So if they're coming to me and they're not willing to invest anything in solving their problem, I know that I can't waste my energy solving their problem for them because it's not a problem enough for them to solve it. Otherwise, they'd be investing in solving it. So I test their dedication. Jonathan, I got this big old problem. It's a huge issue. Okay, what have you tried already? Nothing. Oh, okay, so you enjoy having this problem. This is your way of feeling significant. Okay, I get it. Yeah, you'll figure it out.
No, that's so amazing. I mean, I do the same thing. Me and my best friend do the same thing. I've pointed this out to other people too, that if you go through a deductive reasoning process with somebody and they say they want to do this, they say they want to do that, and you ask them questions to see their dedication, and as a result, I want to do what you're doing in real estate, or I want to be a real estate developer, or I like how knowledgeable you're at this. And okay, so if you want to do those things, what have you done so far to show that you're serious? And not even serious to me, serious to yourself. That's why I asked the question. I mean, I obviously know that what you do, you're serious, and you have a resume that's very large, larger resume than anything that I've done. But I ask people a lot, like, who's your idol in your profession? Because that also is a beacon to show that if you are interested, mentors are vital in a person's development on whatever they're trying to be or whatever they're trying to go. So if you as an individual, you have an idol and you're like, well, I do follow this person. I've read their books and I've implemented some of these different things. I have a notebook where I write different things down. I'm working on these few steps to go towards that direction. I've even bought tickets and a plane ticket to go see that person live, so maybe I can talk to them. That shows a person is more serious, not just not just some type of an idea that they have in their mind, right? So we have lots of ideas, and usually a person tries an idea 0 times before they give up, right? So, and it's only an idea. It becomes a plan when you actually write it down and implement it. Otherwise, it's just a goal, right? So that's a lot of amazing information that you gave. Just a small add into that. I would definitely say that what you implemented was what you just said is amazing, and it's very true. Because, like I said, me and my best friend, we've recently lost 2 good friends of ours because we just felt like they don't share the same behavior as us. And what that means is when you have 2 people or people who are going in a particular direction, and then you have people who say, I want to do the same thing you are, but then maybe they're not taking it serious, they could bring the group down, right? And there's nothing wrong with somebody being wrong about things or being wrong or not having as much knowledge as someone else, or so to speak, but being open to learn, being motivated, and having the desire and putting the effort to do whatever you want to do is all anybody asks for. And when you do put in those different things, it can be beneficial for yourself and or other people that you're working with. And that's all anybody ever asked for. Like me and my best friend, like we do a lot of checking people and checking ourselves. And like I always tell him, you know, one thing we don't mind if you're wrong, because we're wrong. That's the purpose of being in a good group and helping each other out. But when you're wrong, it's best for your benefit to admit, so you can actually correct the issues, correct the problems, and do better for yourself. And if you're not willing to do that, you just know it all and you have everything going for yourself, when you actually don't, and you're trying to pump yourself up to be this person that you're not actually are, that's fine, but it doesn't seem the direction that we're going. So that's my little spill on adding to, and that's why I named my podcast Verbal Artwork, not only because I go by Rembrandt, but the purpose of the way I like to see podcasts and conversation is it is also artwork. So that's why I came up with Verbal Artwork with Mr. Rembrandt, because it not only is it information and it's beneficial, the path and the route that the conversation goes is artistic, and somebody else could be giving this exact information somewhere else, but it might not be attractive to somebody, because the way you explain things I find it to be very exciting. You have some really good quotes and provide a lot of value. So I know a lot of other people will too. So let's talk about your book a little bit. You released 4 books, or maybe more, but
4 that I'm proud of. Yeah.
4 that you're proud of. So I think Like a Mind Reader, was that one of the ones you're proud of?
Yeah, for sure.
Improve your business strength. Okay, so tell me a little bit about that book. First of all, what inspired you to write a book? Was it to be a bestseller, or was it to sort of have a proof of what do you say?
An authority builder?
Yeah, an authority builder.
No.
Or you just wanted to get message out?
It was that one. Get the message out, because after my shows, people are asking me questions, and a lot of my performances are done at colleges. and I'm brought in as an entertainer, the whole mission behind even my entertainment show is to leave people questioning what limits they see as real. Because if I'm some kid who grew up in a trailer park on a dirt road in the mountains, North Carolina, and now I'm a world traveling consultant getting paid crazy money to come in and talk to people, well, that's a huge gap. How in the world did you go from here to there? Because none of that makes any sense. Okay, that's cool. Let's talk about that gap between. All right. So for me, my aim is to help people understand that they are probably capable of a lot more than they've ever thought or have ever imagined might be possible. So even in the entertainment side of things, I want to make my audience members the star of the show. I see my role in the performance as a facilitator for their awesomeness. Whether they're the mind reader, they're the person who predicted the future, I'm now just the curator of their amazement. Instead of me being the rock star, look how amazing I am. So at the beginning of the show, I have to accept that mantle of he's the rock star. I expect him to be a mind reader. I think he will be able to read my mind. So I've got to be that person on the front end for them to go, this is what I expected. Now they're on board. I like what I expected. I expected to like this, and I do. Now that we're all on the same page, that we're having fun, now I can take them where I know they should be, which is going, maybe I could write that book. Maybe I could write that play, whatever that is. For them, that's what I want them to leave going, maybe that is possible because I just watched this dude read minds. What else is possible? Okay. After you share an experience like that with a room full of awesome people, they're going to want to talk to you about it. So the autograph line is always pretty substantial afterwards. And I don't even think about it as an autograph line. It's a, wait a minute, help me understand what the hell I just saw line, right? So I talk to people, and most of the time, college kids. So then they'd be like, wait a minute, I'm going to college because I think I should be doing this because my parents have told me and society's told me I should be doing this. I've always had a dream of making this other thing happen, which isn't even half as crazy as being a professional mind reader. So do you think it's possible that this is what I could do? And I go, well, I don't know if it is for you, but sure, let's figure this out. So a year or two after that's happening, I start getting emails back from college students going, I don't know if you remember me or not. And most of the time I do. They say, we talked about this, that, and that. And I made a whole bunch of changes. And I'm living a life that I couldn't have imagined before meeting you. And I just wanted to thank you and let you know that it made a huge difference. After you start getting emails like that, you're like, oh, okay, that's some heavy stuff. You can't just play with that kind of fire. That's a responsibility. When you start realizing what you're saying people listen to and then act on, holy crap. Okay, you best be serious about this. So then start thinking through, and I'm like, man, all these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that I'm meeting after shows, all their questions boil down to the same 20 kinds of things. Oh, you're so confident, but it's easy for you because you're so outgoing. Well, let me tell you, I'm intensely introverted. I was not always confident. Confidence is a skill that has grown from the seed of competence. I'm not extroverted. I am outgoing because I'm an introvert who has learned to behave in outgoing ways, but I do not recharge from being around lots of people. It actually drives me nuts, and I gotta talk to nobody for the next 3 days. So they have all these beliefs about what it takes to be who I am, which also means that they have beliefs about these things for why they can't be who they want to be. So the book is me cramming all that stuff in so that somebody who wasn't lucky enough to work at a company that brings me in, or go to a college that books me to bring me in, or a conference that books me to bring me in, if they're not lucky enough to be at any of those, well, they could still buy my book and be able to have a conversation with a professional mind reader. So it's me sharing as many of the kind of powerful ideas as I've learned over the years in book form to help as many people as I can.
Oh, that's great. I like how you say that a lot of your show is definitely inspiring the potential in every person. I mean, when I watched Shin Lim's name, I felt that from his show, because his show was very geared towards his journey. Like it was incredible. His journey on how he started off and how he got to where he is. He was doing different magic skits through the process while telling his story. And even the point of where he thought he wasn't sure if he could do magic again because he injured himself, and then he rebuilt himself, came back, and still continuing to put on shows. I mean, a lot of that it should be inspiring. I mean, it was definitely inspiring to me because I get energy from those type of things. And I hope that a lot of other people get energy from those type of things. You know, I've worked in government work, and I've seen a lot of individuals who feel hopeless, who have a lot of different psychological or mental problems, and they don't have anybody positive in their life or any inspiration to pull from to be the best person that they potentially could be. So that's great that is your goal, that's what you're trying to implement to your crowd. Out of the 4 books, you got Think Like a Mind Reader, Perfect Recall, Learn Like a Mind Reader, and then you have first, the book Perfect Recall. How would you, in a short synopsis, how would you, is this perfect recall as in remembering, or perfect recall as remembering?
It's a how-to book for improving your memory skills. Right. It's very short.
So it's very short. Do you know who Jim Quick is?
Name doesn't ring a bell.
No. He's a pretty popular brain coach, and he always says that remembering is not forgetting. Remembering is recalling. So when I read your book, it made me think of that a lot. It's recalling is what memory is, being able to recall. Could you go into that just a little?
For sure. Recall is a lot more difficult than recognition. I can recognize tens of thousands of songs that I've heard before, and I could recall maybe one if it's Happy Birthday. I'm not a musician. I played saxophone in junior high, but that's about it. Like I don't spend time remembering songs, which drives my wife nuts. She has a master's degree in jazz studies from one of the best jazz schools in the country. So when I'm singing along with songs and making up words on the fly that make no sense, it just really gets under her skin. And to me, that's hilarious. So the difference between recall and recognition is a big one to point out. And you're never, ever going to recall something you never noticed in the first place. And that's another lesson from the world of magicians and mentalists, because many times the method is hidden. Or if you are looking at the method, you don't know what it is that you're looking at. You don't recognize it. Or it's there to be seen, but something more interesting is going on. So you pay attention. You have limited amount of attention. You've basically got one attention token per second, and you spend it on one thing or another. So you have attention opportunity costs. So misdirection, most people think that misdirection is to try to distract somebody away from what they shouldn't be seeing, when really effective misdirection is creating more interesting areas than the part you don't want them looking at, so that they themselves are interested in looking at the wrong place. Well, since you never attended to the secret in the first place, how in the world are you going to recall something that never experienced for you? So most people think they have a bad memory when really they have horrible attention skills. So you were never aware of the information in the first place, because while that person was telling you a detail, in your head you're going, oh no, I should be remembering this. I'm going to forget it. So you're having a conversation with yourself about how you're going to forget the thing that you should be paying attention to right now. But you didn't pay attention to it. You were worried about forgetting it, thereby making sure you can't remember it in the first place because you didn't hear it. So most people's awful memory skills, actually at the heart, they don't know how to pay attention to what's going on right in front of them. So that's what that book's about.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, like I said, my best friend always says, man, you have a great memory. My memory kind of sucks. And I said, well, it has to do with recalling. You just don't recall certain things. But me, when we're in specific situations, I make a mental note to try to remember specific things. And I don't think you do that. Do you do that? He was like, no, I don't. Yeah. So no, that's great. So couple more things and then we'll close it out. How did you, so now you have a book, you had a recent book, well, you released it in 2019, I believe. The book, Wing Chun.
Wing Chun, yeah.
Was just, which is a book of life physics, studying and building a life worth of living from the ground up. And through martial arts, I'm assuming is which you were able to find that. So could you just go into that?
Yeah, if people have gotten this far without being interested in psychology and how people think, I'm very impressed. But if you have gotten this far and you're not interested in psychology and you're going, this is all a little abstract for me, I wish there were more concrete examples. Well, go learn martial arts and you'll discover that getting punched in the face is a really good educational tool for appreciating that the universe doesn't care how you feel. The universe doesn't care what you think. The universe doesn't care what you wish. The universe does not care what you want. It doesn't care if you're happy, sad, mad. Nope. The universe only responds to what you do. Because if you are trying to punch me in the face, I could try to think my way out of it. I could try to wish my way out of it. I could try to say something. But if your fist is still coming at my face, none of that stuff is going to work. The only thing that will help is what I do about the current situation. Do I move? Do I intercept what you're doing? Do I frustrate what you're doing? Do I attack what you're attacking with? All of those strategies are only going to work if I actually use them. So it's kind of like you can tell me 1,000,000 things and you're only going to do one thing. So from an energy expenditure standpoint, what do I believe? What you tell me or what you do? If I pay attention to what you do, I don't need to know what you tell me, because your actions are the only thing that matters. So if I get in the habit of paying attention to what you do, there's a lot less chance that you will fool me with what you say. Once you understand that in a you and me standpoint, learning that dynamic gives you the foundation to now realize what you already know, which is you've been doing that with yourself this whole time too. Then the only way I can control your effect on me is by radically accepting control of what I do with my body, my time, my energy, thoughts and feelings and all that kind of stuff. So the only way that I can control a situation is by only focusing on what I can control, which is me. So if I try to control you, you've already won, because I'm giving you the initiative of dictating the nature of our relationship in every single second. But the instant that I focus on what I can do, I realize I can do a lot, and my options open up beyond the options you're giving me. All of that sounds like abstract wooey stuff until you're actually in a school that loves you enough to punch you in the face. That will teach you a lot of this stuff very quickly in a much more direct path than thinking your way through it, which I think is kind of fun and ironic from a professional mind reader. But if you want the fast track, go pick up a martial art, and that will leapfrog your progress.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I've done Muay Thai on and off for 6 years. And one thing about being in a scenario with martial arts, for example, is you have to learn and get better. Otherwise, you're literally going to get hurt. I mean, and that analogy is similar to life. I mean, your best bet you can do in life is try to do better, work harder, gain knowledge, and take responsibility and take your life serious, because it will help you. So martial arts, I agree, is a good way to understand how the flow of life works. It's a much more automatic, real life scenario. Well, I mean, it's all real life, but it's a much more interactive scenario on how that can play into life itself. No, I agree. There was a quote by Vince Lombardi, believe, that said, referring to when it comes to when you'll be remembered, you won't be remembered for what you said. You'll only be remembered for what you did, like when you're all gone. So that's very impactful. So one last thing, you being a mentalist, do you have anything in which you can do now that's a mentalist exercise or whatever, where you can kind of show your skills? Now, don't try to get my credit cards or trick me into telling you, sending you my car keys, like that.
Right.
Turn over my bank accounts to you.
Yeah, that's funny, because I just had packed up my office for a gig yesterday and hadn't unpacked everything. So normally I like to demonstrate with a pack of cards, because playing cards are basically infinity in your hand, because there are so many ways to mix a deck of cards that basically if you had one if you had one atom represent one potential way that a deck could be shuffled, you would run out of atoms in the universe before you got through all the different ways that you could shuffle a deck of cards. Like it's staggering. So let me grab a deck, then I'll share that with you. Alrighty. So, and we're back. So the thing I like is that my magician friends make fun of me for the way that I mix cards up because it looks so goofy. Because I never really was interested in the sleight of hand stuff or having fancy shuffles and all that kind of thing. So you can see for the folks that are listening to this later, they're actually getting mixed up and put in different places and that kind of thing. I'm not just kind of winking and nod. Oh, you just go along with it, right? That kind of thing. Right. So what I am going to do is try to use our experience to forecast your choice. Because I can't predict the future. I mean, I can't predict the headlines 2 weeks from now. That's why I'm not going to Vegas and winning the lottery or betting on horses, that kind of thing. Because it's easier to forecast the weather an hour from now than it is 2 weeks from now, right? So it's easy for me to forecast your decision in the next 2 minutes than it is in the next 2 years. Does that make sense? All right. So for me, my job is to look through the cards, kind of weigh our conversation, and then make an educated forecast on where you're going to say stop.
Okay.
I have it. And my forecast is that you're going to stop me at the 2 of spades. All right. And you can see they're not all the 2 of spades. Yeah. But that would make it super easy if I just had a whole deck of 2 of spades. So it's not that. The 2 of spades is in here somewhere. And where you say stop will be right at the 2 of spades. All right. So anytime you want, say stop. And the card that you stop me at will be the 2 of spades.
Stop.
Okay. You said stop. You stopped me at this card right here. Later, when you think about this moment, you're going to think, you know what? That mind reader didn't give me another chance. If I would have known what was going to happen, I for sure would have changed my mind, because I bet everybody stops at the 5th card. So you know what? I wish I had said, please keep going. Knowing what you know now, do you want to go as your first instinct, or do you want to change your mind and continue going?
We'll continue.
Okay. And later, I don't want you thinking, he made me change my mind. That was you genuinely changing your mind, right? Okay. And do you have a particular number of cards you would like me to deal off, or do you want to just feel the moment later?
I'll feel the moment.
All right.
Stop.
Okay. So this is the second place that you've stopped me after 3 or 4 more. And this is your final answer, yes? Okay. So you stopped me at this card. You can see I'm taking it very carefully. Had you said stop on the next one, it would have been the 8 of diamonds. The next one after that, 5 of clubs. Next one after that, King of spades. But you stopped me at this card, correct? And do you remember what the card was that I said you would stop me at?
The 2 of...
That looks exactly like this, yeah?
Yeah.
Boom. 2 of spades, just like that.
Really good.
It is. Thank you.
How about that? Well, hey, you're the real deal. That's for sure.
I got the goods. I can back it up. That would have been awful, right? If this whole time taking an hour and a half to talk about, yes, I'm very impressive. I'm excellent. And then you screwed that up. That would not be what we like to call a legitimizer.
Yeah, that would have been a crack. Social proof wouldn't have been.
Yep. Nope.
Wow. So thank you so much. I mean, this has been an amazing episode. I really, really appreciate you sitting down with me and taking the time to do this episode and being on my podcast. I really mean a lot. It was a great episode. A lot of value in this. Would you like anything to say to close out, and also give where people can reach you at? I'll definitely put a lot of links in the show notes.
Yeah.
Where people can reach you. But if you would like to do a closer and let people know where they can find you at.
Well, thank you very much. It really is an honor to be invited on to share my thoughts. So I definitely appreciate that. And the easiest place for people to find me is on my website, jonathanpritchard.me. There are a lot of creative ways to misspell both those names. So milliondollarmindreader.com is the easier one to spell. That'll get you kind of the same kind of information about the different ways that I help companies in terms of trainer for sales, negotiation, presentation, and influence skills, as a kind of done-for-you consultant for trade shows. So if anybody listening, your company exhibits at trade shows, you need me there to help draw a crowd, entertain them, and deliver your qualification marketing messaging through that show. Then you get 3 to 4 times as many qualified leads as the passive one-on-one approach that most people have at trade shows. So that's one way that I'm super useful to my clients. So yeah, there's lots of ways that I can help lots of people, and that's all there. If social media is your vibe and you want to know what it's like being locked in my brain for 14 hours a day, find me on Twitter. That's where I hang out the most. My handle changes every once in a while because I just think that's hilarious. So anything I tell you on the show will probably be outdated, but the current link is always on either of those websites. So yeah, that's the place to go.
All right, amazing. Thanks again, Jonathan, for being on the show. And like I said, I'll put the links in the show links, and appreciate the guests for watching. This is Verbal Artwork with Mr. Rembrandt, and my guest here is Jonathan Pritchard. Thanks again.
You got it, man.
Really appreciate it.